Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Israel Brief with me, Rolene Marks, as I bring you those top stories making headlines every Monday to Thursday. And just a reminder, you can view all of our content online at our website, our written content, plus all your Israel Brief broadcasts on www.layoftheland.online. We also have a social media presence, and I'll get to those important details at the end of the broadcast. But let's take a look at those top stories. And we begin with news that undercover officers have arrested a Palestinian in Tulkarem. The officers were conducting raids again to arrest anyone with links to terror. The man was armed, and in a firefight he was shot and then later taken into custody. Several residents of East Jerusalem have also been arrested for throwing firecrackers at the police. Meanwhile, renovations are currently underway at Joseph's tomb. If you remember, at the beginning of the week, we brought you that story that Joseph's tomb, which is sacred to Jews, Christians, Muslims, and Samaritans, had been desecrated and defaced twice in 2 days. Now, there were intense clashes as the IDF was supervising these renovations, and at least one Palestinian was killed. A manhunt is underway for the father of the terrorist who was responsible for the attack on Dizengoff Street last week. He is Palestinian Authority security official Fatih Hamed. He is wanted also for starting a campaign of incitement after the terror attack. And Israel's comptroller has recommended that victims of terror attacks sue or launch civil cases against the terrorists and the Palestinian Authority. He says this is something in Israeli law which is not often enacted, and that filing civil lawsuits or civil cases against the perpetrators could offset the enormous amounts of money that the Palestinian Authority pays towards the salaries of terrorists and their families. So something really to consider. Now, the cyber unit under the Israeli State's Attorney have said that they have noted an 800% increase in online terror incitement. They've said that since the start of the wave of terror, which started with the shootings in Beersheba just about 3 weeks ago, there have been 5,815 incidents or complaints about online terror incitement, mostly on Facebook and Twitter. They've also said that the social media platforms only remove about 30% of the incitement, and I know just from personal experience, I have seen some vile postings, and when I have reported it, I've received notification to say that the content does not violate Twitter's standards. Well, I don't know what their standards are. They obviously can't be very high, but the cyber unit go on to say that the problem with online terror or incitement is that it often leads to more terror attacks and also copycat terror incidents. So as you can well imagine, this is something that they will be discussing in great detail with the social media giants. We have noted over the last year or so increased pressure put on Facebook, Twitter by various states and various NGOs and organizations to do something about the online incitement and hate in various different categories that seems to surface on these platforms. And yesterday, news broke that the Chinese embassy had given, as part of their annual Pesach or Passover gifting, a thermal mug. Now, there was some speculation yesterday in the Israeli media that these gifts could have been bugged with some kind of espionage device. Well, Shin Bet, or the Shabak as they're known here, have examined these gifts, and they have found that there are no devices that can be used for espionage. Rather, because these are thermal mugs designed to keep your coffee or your tea hot, the component that many have thought could be a a listening device of some sort is actually a warming device. The Chinese embassy have a comment on this, saying that it is speculation and rumors like this that seeks to drive a wedge between China and Israel, and that it also goes a long way to helping to tarnish China's reputation. They were quite angry that these stories broke, so the Shin Bet have set the record straight. But I don't know if he needs a thermal mug, but our resident astronaut Eitan Stibbe, our second ever astronaut who is on board the International Space Station, has communicated with journalists right here on planet Earth. He was asked about his Pesach plans, and he said, while he is getting very used to zero gravity and the conditions around there, he does have plans for his Seder in space, or would that be a space Seder? He says he has a sheet of matzah which he will eat, and there's also some gefilte fish, he says, found by the Russians. I don't want to know more elaborate than that, where exactly did they find it. But he says he also has some wine in his kiddush cup, and he will make kiddush on Seder, which starts on Friday night in space. So, we talk about Pesach being the festival of freedom. It's a different kind of freedom when you're celebrating in outer space. And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast, but just a reminder about that social media and where you can find us. We're on Facebook. On our site is called @LottlSite. I promise you no dodgy posts. We won't allow for that either. You can find us at @LottlSite. Please give us a like or a follow if you haven't already. Share our content. Our YouTube channel is @The Israel Brief. And if you would like to get Israel's side of the news or side of the story out to as many people as possible, please consider clicking on that red subscribe button. It helps us get as much news out as possible. It seems I have been space invaded myself. I keep forgetting my words. And we're on Twitter @LayOfTheLand with the digit 5. That is @LayOfTheLand with the digit 5. So all that remains for me today is to wish you a wonderful, safe and healthy rest of your day. I'm going to go and try and locate where my vocab has suddenly disappeared to. But a reminder that I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, which we do Mondays to Thursdays. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check in with us again round about this time tomorrow.